Hello friends, we're coming to you from the Washington D.C. United Lodge of Theosophists. Today's talk is on the Aim of Theosophy. On October 25, we will present a talk on the theosophical principles. Our physical location is closed due to COVID-19, but we are available to all who join us every Sunday at Google Meet. Also, we are at UOT DC, phone number 301-656-3566, or our email address, which is uotdclodge@gmail.com. Those watching on YouTube can find this contact information on our program on the 4 slides at the end of this presentation. Other information about us can be found at our website, which is www.ultdc.org. We subscribe to the Declaration of UOT. This declaration speaks of our policy of independent devotion to the cause of theosophy. We don't profess attachment to any theosophical organization. We are loyal to the great founders, but don't concern ourselves with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The end we keep in view is too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of theosophy and the exemplification and practice of those principles through a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. We hold that the unassailable basis for union among theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching. This similarity is the sole bond between our associates. We aim to disseminate this idea among theosophists in the furtherance of unity. We regard as theosophists all who are engaged in the true service of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization. And we welcome to our association all those who are in accord with these declared purposes and who desire to fit themselves by study and otherwise to be the better able to help and teach others. The true theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. We're going to have now today's reading followed by the presentation, which is the aim of theosophy.
Thank you. Today's reading comes from the Voice of the Silence. Fragment 3, the 7 portals. Upadaya, the choice is made, I thirst for wisdom. Now hast thou rent the veil before the secret path and taught the great Rihanna. Thy servant here is ready for thy guidance. It is well, Shravaka. Prepare thyself, for thou wilt have to travel on alone. The teacher can but point the way. The path is one for all. The means to reach the goal must vary with the pilgrims. Which wilt thou choose, O doubtless heart? The Samtan of I-doctrine, fourfold dhyana, or thread thy way through paramita 6 in number, noble gates of virtue leading to body and to prajna, the 7th step of wisdom. The rugged path of fourfold dhyana winds on uphill. Thrice great is he who climbs the lofty top. The paramita heights are crossed by a still steeper path. Thou hast to fight thy way through portal 7 strongholds held by cruel, crafty powers, passions incarnate. Be of good cheer, disciple. Bear in mind the golden rule. once thou hast passed the gate Sratapati, he who the stream hath entered, once thy foot hath pressed the bed of the Nirvanika stream, in this or any future life, thou hast but 7 other births before thee of the adamantine will. The theosophical aim and object is clearly specified in the declaration and in the messages that H.B. sent to the American Theosophists during the latter part of the 19th century. The declaration, if read by all Theosophists, would show to the open-minded the forms that took place during that period. And this should really turn us to the principles of Theosophy. The door is open to all of the Theosophists, and whoever realizes this would start the work on themselves. This door is open to all. Of course, we have to listen and think. No one can do this for us. We have to do it for ourselves. So then ULT is known as an association of students who get together for learning, assimilating, and discussion of pure and simple philosophy or theosophy. Some think that the movement of the 19th century was a failure, but we must always remember that Master never ceased working. So the humblest Theosophist, who is clear-eyed and humanity-loving, receive help from them as well as the most developed. This can be achieved if we get back to the teachers and their philosophy, in other words, what they gave out in the 19th century, and also do the right work. So then, if this is looked for, it is found that ULT, the lines laid down by those teachers is followed, and there is no discouragement or bewilderment for any Theosophist whatsoever. H.B. said this in 1888. Night before last, I was shown a bird's eye view of the Theosophical Societies. I saw a few earnest, reliable Theosophists in a death struggle with the world in general, and other nominal but ambitious Theosophists. The former are greater in number than you may think, and they prevail. And so you in America will prevail if you remain staunch to the Master's program and true to yourselves. And again, for it is only when the nucleus is formed that the accumulations can begin, that will end in future years, however far in the formation of that body which we have in view. So here is the aim of the movement, is to have a nucleus formed, and this she said in the messages she sent to the Theosophists in America, was that this nucleus be formed in each country, because there are Theosophists everywhere, all over the world, and once this nucleus is formed, then accumulations start. So has it been formed is what we need to ask during the beginning of the 21st century, and make some assumptions. We know that the period we are in is a transition period, and so the heredity and the training of people in general are really the obstacles in the right way of appreciation of theosophy and also its application. But out of these confusions, this nucleus, this great body must come. Now, we have gone through a tremendous upheaval during this period as a result of COVID-19, and our way of life has really changed. One significant difference is that the mode of dissemination of information, and of course this includes dissemination of theosophy as well. We are now communicating through Facebook, through Zoom, Skype, and other apps like Google Meet. So in a way, the world has become smaller and our communication skills have improved. Regardless of wherever we are, we can still participate in these meetings and learn from different programs that are being offered all over the world, whether it be London, Philadelphia, LA, or Washington, DC. We can all get together at the specified times for learning. This also shows that regardless of where we are, we have found that theosophies do exist. Our aim, purpose, and teaching is similar to one another. Even HPB during the 19th century made the statement that all theosophists cannot disseminate this information, which in time becomes knowledge and then turns into wisdom, in the same way. That we have to allow for differences, that each lodge is free to disseminate this information the way it sees fit, and its information is the same, but mode of delivery can be different, and HPV said this has to be encouraged. So, since we are all over the world, that aim that the master had in mind, and so diligently HPB and Judge R.C. Wadia and others were for, is the formation of this nucleus. So we have to put aside our personal differences and see if this nucleus can be formed, so that additions and accumulations can then begin. The philosophy was brought out to fight against the dangers of religious bigotry, rank materialism, and crass selfishness. Also, the growing psychic craze at that time was very evident. We are told that the ethics of theosophy are more important than divulgement of psychic laws and facts. To kindle in the heart that sacred fire, which is capable of reducing to dross and ashes the materiality of our worldly desires. So, the message talks about feelings of fraternal sympathy, social unity and solidarity for the common cause, which is to help mankind. And because of the introduction of this philosophy, a distinct change has come over the spirit of the age. The transcendental influence is very obvious. Phenomena and wonders are really not seek or followed, but people are eventually starting to study philosophy of theosophy. And this means that pure and simple theosophy is needed and still has a severe battle to fight for recognition. Because the rational explanation of things is very much needed to furnish that beacon light that is needed to guide humanity towards its true path. And HPB told us in 1888 that theosophy, once it had accomplished its most holy and most important mission, namely to unite firmly a body of men of all nations in brotherly love and bent on a pure altruistic work, not on a labor with selfish motives, on that day only will theosophy become higher than any nominal brotherhood of men. This has been worked for many, many centuries, but it had not been accomplished. So it falls on the theosophists of the 21st century to accomplish this brotherhood of men for which humanity has been waiting for more than 18 centuries. HPB brought out ISIS Unveiled, Secret Doctrine, The Key to Theosophy, Voice of the Silence. Mr. Judd wrote Ocean of Theosophy. The Gita was transliterated into English. A lot of letters were published in book form. RC followed with Friendly Philosopher and Universal Theosophy and other books. And these are all available today in print in their original form. And this is what RC is telling us in the Friendly Philosopher, that if we really want to help humanity, the way to do it is to stay with the original writings of Theosophy and do the right work for it. Now, the aim of Theosophy is to remove the current of the materialism, which is still very much in existence today. Also, a spiritualistic phenomenalism, worship of the dead, and guide the spiritual awakening and not to pander to psychic cravings, which is just another form of materialism. So this materialism of the age is not just an anti-philosophical negation of pure spirit, but materialism in conduct and action also, which leads to brutality, hypocrisy, and above all, selfishness. And disbelief in all but material things has increased enormously in the 20th century, and it has led into a blind belief in the materialization of the spirit. So the modern civilization of today is reaction towards animalism, towards a development of those qualities that is sure to lead people to success in life of man as an animal in his struggle for animal existence. But Theosophy seeks to develop human nature in man, in addition to the animal, and at the sacrifice of this superfluous animality. So in this stage of progress, we are told this is an abnormal development for the human being. So theosophy is the perfect harmonizing of the divine with the human, the adjustment of his godlike qualities and aspirations, and their sway over the terrestrial or animal passions in him. Kindness, absence of every ill feeling, selfishness, charity, goodwill to all, perfect justice to others, as well as oneself, is its chief features. It teaches goodwill, and HPB told us that he who preaches the gospel of goodwill teaches theosophy. And the reverse of this is also true. She loved this great American republic because she was also a citizen of it. And she believed that the republic was fitted for independent thought to govern us in the coming centuries, and that it was the ideal place for this great brotherhood to be formed in. She told us at that time that theosophists are the friends of all movements in the world that try to help humanity in some way, maybe practically, maybe intellectually, and some work for improving the condition of mankind in general. She also told us at that time that we are against drunkenness and we fight for it, against cruelty to animals, against injustice to women, against corruption in society or government. And of course, she then said we don't dabble in politics. We are friends who exercise practical charity of those, and those people who try to remove the way to misery which is crushing down the poor, which exists today as well. So, we have a tremendous aim, and this aim is to open men's hearts and understanding to charity, justice, generosity. These are attributes that belong to the human kingdom and are natural to man when he has developed the qualities of a human being. Theosophy teaches the animal man to become a human man, or to be a human man, to act as a human man. So, when people have learned to think and feel as truly human beings should feel and think, they will act humanely, and works of charity, justice, generosity will be done by all spontaneously. She told us at that time that we were fighting a public that was prejudiced against theosophy. We were fighting those who were trying to discredit theosophy and throw mud at theosophists, and those charlatanesque societies or that call themselves theosophical by stealing theosophical terminology and actually the tenets, but changing them to fit into their own mode by interjecting into it a personal God. And we are also, she told us, fighting materialism, prejudice, obstinacy, people's custom and religious forms. And they were, she said, too numerous to actually mention all of them. But besides these, theosophists are also fighting those who are unfaithful, both to themselves and also to the program of ULT. She says that around us is the death valley, and we have to learn to stand up and fight. She asks the question, shall we not fight and win the battle of the soul, struggling in the spirit of the higher self to win our divine heritage? So her aim was not against those true spiritualistic people called spiritists at the time, but actually those who were a lower order of phenomenalists. Psychic development at that time was very much at the forefront. She did tell us that in the coming centuries there would be a lot of changes to our psyche, and that there would be a lot more people in asylums. And she says, it is the human soul we are working with. And at the time, the hypnotism and mesmerism experiments were done, behind which they did not know what kind of causation stood, what the qualities of the practitioner ought to be, and she said that most of it was unconscious or conscious black magic. And then she tells us that the true course of study that they had in mind cures all ills because it is altruism. The keynote of theosophy, she tells us, is universal brotherhood. Thus, even in name of body of altruists, we still have to cover and fight all of the selfish ends of the materialistic society we live in. And in the end, she's telling us not to divide this movement, that its strength is in unity. But unfortunately for us, this has already occurred. And even though its strength was divided, nevertheless, some good out of it did come. And now in this century, we are told that each one of us has to become a center unto himself. So here is the difference. When that center is formed, she says that other people will be of similar minds, will be attracted to it, and then from that center, influences will go out into the community and nation, and higher influences will be drawn into it. So this is the objective that we need to accomplish in this century by becoming a center for this dissemination and assimilation and influence that exerts itself from it, we need to do it. Now, just a few more words before we close. At this time, we are told that we have mixed natures, and our energies, in that sense, are also divided, because until we become one-pointed, this occurs for all devoted theosophists. And it says that when we examine ourselves, we come to the realization that 9/10 of one's time is spent either in work seemingly of no spiritual benefit to mankind, or spent in recreations and personal things for ourselves. Then when we come to this point of realization, we need to review and reevaluate. This evaluation is to be done by each one. During this period of transition, it is stated that we cannot really have work that will be totally satisfactory because of our mixed aspirations. Too much study always brings surfeit and paralysis of thought. Too much teaching on behalf of one deprives others of the opportunity to learn to teach. And too much thought leads to endless circles without issue. When the nature ceases to be mixed, then only the mixed activities will cease. So, until that time, we look for usefulness in the seemingly useless, significance for seemingly insignificant work, and we come to the realization that perhaps the work we do could be done by 100 million men devoid of any wisdom, but we have to remember that it might support those of a family whose existence on earth is a spiritual necessity and may be an unheeded link in the chain of cosmic import. And that it might be lifting from the camel's back the final fatal straw. So few are the occupations wherein the spiritually alert mind cannot find new lessons, new surprises, new thoughts of use for mankind. There are 3 classes of occupations. 1, tamasic, serving the ends of idleness, drunkenness, vanity, debauchery, and frivolity. Rajasic, serving ambition and destruction. And the sattvic, having to do with the production of necessary food, clothing, and shelter, with health, education, and enlightenment. The theosophist of the 21st century must choose his own master and his own karma. That everything we do for others has some value. The only thing that does not can be considered the things we do for ourselves. Thank you.